Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for Star Trek Lower Deck Season 5, Episode 6 of Gods and Angles. This video is part of a series of videos where I review episodes of Star Trek Lower Decks. So I have to start with the spoiler warning for Lower Decks up to Season 5, Episode 6. If you have not seen this episode, you will not want to watch this video, otherwise some things will be spoiled for you. So, yet another good, averagely good, but not great episode of Lower Decks. It seems like this is what Season 5 is churning out every week. And I shouldn't be disappointed with that. I was thinking about this. I should be happy with it because I always say my favorite season of Star Trek is Season 3 of TNG, and the reason why I like it is because there's not really any bad episodes. Most episodes are averagely good, like the average rating is a 7 or an 8 that I gave an episode to that season. So, yeah, a season that has no bad episodes, which so far Season 5 has not had any bad episodes, or even poor or below average. They all have been pretty good, like averagely good, I will say. And so that's not necessarily a bad thing. However, Season 3, if I'm making that comparison, did have a couple really great episodes in there, quite it's 5 or 6, although it's a bigger season. But still, if the season wants to live up to Season 3 of TNG, it needs to get some great episodes, and I'm still waiting, but we'll see. Anyway, so this one's okay. It seemed like, again, like an average Star Trek episode, but in a good way, not in a bad way. But still, just average. It's like what you would expect from Star Trek, two warring factions, and it's what you'd expect from Lower Decks, where they're glowing balls and squares, or spheres, I should say, and squares, and they're like feuding with each other. That was actually kind of funny. I liked the idea, and I liked seeing all those balls and and squares, boxes, I guess you would call them, not squares, but whatever. All of them like wandering the ship, and they're photonic being, because we know that there's been photonic beings in Star Trek before. The only one I can think of off the top of my head was in that episode with Captain Proton and Voyager, where they had these photonic beings that mistaken the holodeck characters for intelligent beings or whatever. That was used just as a contrivance to do a stupid Captain Proton episode, but still. And I'm sure there's other examples of photonic beings. Maybe some people will tell me in the comments, but I'm sure they exist. So it's a Star Trek thing, and they do it really well. And, of course, the main plot involves Ensign Ollie. And I really like the idea of this character. I think it's really interesting to have, now that Marnier has matured and grown up and sort of moved past her rebellious phase, it's interesting to introduce another character who is still in that rebellious stage, and how Marnier sort of sees herself in her and so tries to relate to her. But she finds out during the course of the episode that she's not the same as her, that she is different, that is less of being rebellious and more of sort of hiding her, godlike heritage and just wanting to be an engineer but never allowed to, and sort of trying to hide the fact that she has these electrical powers because she doesn't want to doesn't want to be judged by that. Wants to be judged by her own merits. But this, she is a bit of a misfit and does sort of, have a lot of behavioral problems that Marnier has to deal with. And that was a very interesting dynamic, I will say. I like the scene at the start of the episode where she was like, and it was a good introduction to the character, where she had like stacked all of these things on this sled or whatever, and it was like, oh, who said you couldn't stack all these things on the sled? And Ransom comes up and like, I did, and it was an order, not a challenge. Like that's pretty funny. And I like how it kind of reminded me a bit of Hollow Pursuits with Barclay, because how Barclay kept getting transferred from ship to ship, and eventually Picard stuck his foot down. It's like, no, we're gonna stop just making it someone else's problem, and we're gonna fix it. We're gonna deal with it. We're gonna mold him into a better officer. And it was actually Mariner who said that, not Freeman, because Freeman was prepared to just transfer her to another ship and get rid of her. And basically, I think they said it was like after she'd been transferred so many times, it would be pretty much the end of her career. I'm surprised they didn't mention Starbase 80, but Starbase 80, but maybe they realize it's a good place now. I don't know. But anyway, so it was Mariner who stuck her foot down and like begged her mother, like, please let me give her another chance, let me try to mold her. And of course, it wasn't working. Hijinks ensue. Which is, typical for the plot. How, Ensign Ollie was hiding the evidence, and then Mariner found out that she actually did have powers, and she had that. What was it? I can't even remember what she called that wreath around her head. Apparently, that was hereditary. So they said that her grandfather's Zeus. And I guess they're trying to play off of the episode Who Mourns for Adonais, and from the original series where they actually meet Apollo, and the Greek gods were real, they were just aliens. But in that episode, Apollo said that he was the only remaining god, that Zeus and all of them, like, died or went to the winds or whatever. They even mention that going to the winds in this episode. But yeah, so I don't know. It doesn't seem to fit because Zeus wasn't there. It was just Apollo, and then he died by the end of that episode. So I don't really get how Zeus could be her grandfather, but I guess the answer is shut up and just go with it, and fine, I will. It's not that big of a deal, but still, I never like it, even Lower Decks, when they follow up on something from TOS that should be forgotten because it's too goofy and silly, like the Abraham Lincoln thing, or the amoeba eating the galaxy, and especially Apollo. Like, I know they have the thing in the opening credits where they have that giant hand grabbing the cube, which is the hand, of Apollo that grabbed the Enterprise in that same episode. But, gags like that, whatever. I prefer Lower Decks not focus on stuff like that. I know they do it for like gags and for comedy or whatever, and it's fine. Like, as I said, it's not a sticking point. It's not like I'm saying this episode sucks because of it. But I just prefer they not do that. But that being said, like, I think they used this character well, and to juxtapose Mariner and see her having to deal with someone who is also rebellious, and the episode ends with them like, oh, you did a great job, you saved the ship, so we're promoting you to engineering where you need to be, but you're going in the brig first. And then she's like, throws a fit and says, oh, I love the brig or whatever, and she's acting just like Mariner. And Mariner's like, yeah, sure, you're right, we're nothing alike, when she was saying the exact same things that Mariner used to say. So this show's coming to an end, though. They're introducing characters this late in the show, so I don't know if we'll get this character again. I'm sure she must pop up in some of the later episodes, but there's not much left. There's only 4 episodes left of the entire show. It's very sad to think about that. But it was a good character story for Marnier nonetheless. Now, the Boimler side plot, I didn't really care for. Again, I didn't totally hate it. I didn't think it sucked and ruined the episode, but I didn't care about it. I wasn't that interested in it. I didn't find it particularly funny. The way that Boimler was trying to make friends with with was it Ta'ana? And he's kind of making an ass out of himself and like doing backflips, and the time when he started cursing at her and she got pissed off and like beat the crap out of him, started scratching him, like I didn't even find that funny. I was just finding it kind of dumb, to be honest. I guess the funny part of it was when they had that pad from the alternate reality and they kept everyone, everyone was Rutherford and Tindy would always point out like, oh yeah, you can tell that pad because it's got a different thing. They would point something like very obscure and he'd be like, it's red. You can tell the difference because it's red. That was funny. And the fact that, everyone knew that Boimler had that pad and he was trying to hide it, and it was obvious that he was trying to emulate his, I was going to say mirror universe, but it's not mirror universe, let's say alternate universe self, which is an ongoing storyline for this season, which is good. We keep it going. But I love how it ends when he makes friends with Ta'ana, and apparently he got a nickname. It was Fucko. Which, alright, whatever. That's fine. But the moral that Rutherford took away from it is, you should try to emulate your other self. You should try to emulate other people. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to emulate my alternate self. And Tindy's like, no, like that. Okay, so that was kind of funny. And I do wonder if they are going to play off of that more. And I think we're definitely going to get more Boimler because he's almost got I wouldn't say almost got a full beard, but he keeps getting bigger with each episode. So I do wonder if we are going to get the full beard by the end of the show. Again, very sad that it's ending. But yeah, so that side plot was kind of, not totally terrible, but I didn't really care much about it. Now, the thing with the spheres and boxes or whatever you call them, the circles and squares, as I said, that was kind of funny, and that was an interesting Star Trek kind of thing. The thing that, there was the leader's son was missing, and then they found out the other leader's daughter was missing. Like, I didn't realize that it was a daughter missing. I think I missed that. If I did, I would have guessed immediately that they're having an affair. Like, when they revealed that, I was like, oh, of course. Like, that's obvious. Like, I knew from the beginning that the son, I didn't know exactly where he was, but I knew he'd show up at the end and be like, I'm fine, you guys are worrying about nothing, blah blah. I knew that was going to happen, so it was kind of predictable, and the Romeo and Juliet storyline was really predictable and kind of cliche and stuff that's Trek done before, and it wasn't done for humor, really. I mean, some people might say it's funny, but it was mainly the plot point of the episode, so I think it is kind of just cliche and unimaginative. Although, talking about unimaginative, one of my favorite jokes of the episode is when the all the squares and circles go up and form their own different thing, and they just end up forming a giant sphere in a giant box. And Ransom's like, they're unimaginative. They're just doing that. So I did like these aliens. I think the gag about them, like how that one was like, oh, don't look at me, I'm naked, when it wasn't glowing. Like jokes like that was funny. So this is why I'm saying this is a good episode, just averagely good. It just didn't stand out as being absolutely amazing. So anyway, my rating for of Gods and Angles out of 10 is going to be a 7. Very good. Very good. It was fine. Like I said, interesting character. Interesting seeing Marnier relate to this character who remind her a lot of her past behavior. It was a good character story for Marnier. These box and circles things was kind of funny and kind of interesting. But overall, it was kind of a cliche Star Trek plot. It's your typical Star Trek plot, which isn't a bad thing, but it's not a great thing either. And yeah, the Boimler side plot was just throwaway. Whatever. So anyway, that is it for my review of the latest episode of Lower Decks. I'll be back next week to cover Season 5, Episode 7 of Lower Decks. So be sure to check it out and check out my channel as I continue to cover Lower Decks and also covering Star Trek Next Generation and Star Trek Deep Space Nine and many other shows as well. So be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. And thanks a lot for watching.